we need challenges, and like we live in a world where like our every bit of our environment is controlled, like from the temperature to where our food is to like what temperature the food is to what we want to eat. You don't need to leave the couch to get food anymore. And it's like if you don't instill some sort of hard in your life, then you're going to get soft. And if you're soft, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being soft until hard things come.
I don't usually struggle for words. I'm not usually a guy who kind of has difficulty in explaining, articulating myself, but describing you to people is extremely difficult. So I was wondering, as a kind of first question, how will you describe yourself?
Um, I guess I would say that I just reinvent myself. Like I'm a super passionate guy, and that lasts for about like 7 to 10 years where I'm just on fire for like something, and then literally, um, I'll walk into wherever the situation is. Like I walk into a job that like I was super passionate about for like 7 or 10 years, and be like, "This is done. This is over. It's time for me to do something else." And it will literally be like a day that I'll feel that, and I will literally from that day forward, I will start being like, where's the focus going? Where's it going to be? Almost like Lord of the Rings, like the eyes focusing and it. Once it finds the next thing, then everything in my life starts to shift around to like become oriented all towards whatever the next goal is. And literally, for whatever reason, I don't know. I still don't know. I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I still don't know. And so, like literally, every 7 to 10 years, I'm like, well, why don't I just change everything? And I always lived by the saying, like, you must be willing to sacrifice everything you are for everything you can become. And I grew up around a bunch of inspirational quotes and all that stuff. I mean, I grew up in like the 80s, the 90s. Like that was the whole Anthony Robbins was like huge, like
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar, all those things, you know. And people truly believe that like you could be anything that you wanted to be if you worked hard enough and you believed and visualized. And I still believe a lot of that, you know what I mean? And man, I grew up around quotes, but I was always like, man, people say stuff all the time, but you don't see a whole lot of people live that. When I saw someone say you need to be able to like lay it all out there and walk away from the other life, like just walk away, you have to be willing to do it. And at every time in my life when there has come to a point where I needed to make a change, that's always what it came up to. And every single time it has served me well to be willing to throw it all out there and without a safety net either, because if you have a safety net, that's awesome, but it also allows you to fail without trouble, right? Like I always had to kind of be in a situation where I was like, I mean, I quit my government job, which was like a very nice, steady paycheck, good insurance, good everything. I walked away from all of that to start a to start a gym for a sport that competes in parking lots that I've been doing for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know, but this is so much more exciting to me than like doing the same thing again, you know? And I was ready for a change. And when the change popped up, I was like, well, you know what? I've been looking for something. This door just got opened. I seem to be okay at it. This kind of makes sense for my life. So I'm gonna walk right through despite like what everyone in my life says, you know? So
It's
I would just say that I'm somebody who every 7 to 10 years becomes a completely new individual.
it's pretty inspiring to see, from early on with the karate school and being
Yeah.
a third degree black belt, and then an MMA athlete, and then, as you
Yeah.
said, the personal training, and then the counterterrorism stuff, and then the strongman. So I guess we kind of segued onto this early on, but like we must be approaching that 7 to 10 year mark now, right?
We are. We are.
So is there something that's in the mind that's kind of like, where you
There
might be
is.
going?
There definitely is. I mean, um, for literally the past 30 years of my life, I've been trying to figure out this meat vehicle and trying to make it like as powerful, as explosive, as like efficient as I can make it.
And you've done a
Um,
pretty good job of that, in fairness. Like,
I've tried with like everything from like martial arts and like trying to be well rounded as well as just not like I didn't want to just be like a huge bodybuilder or
yeah,
nothing, but like a power lifter, a bench specialist, or I always wanted to be useful from even like my Alpha T Nation days, like back in that time. The training was always about being effective at whatever life's going to throw you. Like before CrossFit, it was like CrossFit for stronger. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to be a little stronger than CrossFit guys,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I love the idea of like having to be able to do a lot of things. And I totally lost where we're going. What are we talking about?
Well, no, like just because, so we've gone through a little bit of your career and like, you have this like 7 to 10 year kind of where you
Yes,
start
yes,
to
yes.
transition.
So everything like powerlifting, bodybuilding, all that worked into strongman because that seemed like the most functional. And then even from strongman now, I'm like, what out of strongman actually makes sense and what stuff is gonna hurt me over the long run?
Yeah.
And figuring out what I can do as I get older. And now my brain's going, you figured out the physical side. Like you know how to make, I've made world champions. I currently coach world champions. Like I know how to do that. I don't understand the mental side as well as I'd like. And the classic saying of like training is 99% mental, whatever statistic people want to throw
I
out
think
there,
you're
right?
living proof of a lot of that as well,
I'm
right?
trying, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm signed up for grad school. I was actually visiting college today, um, to kind of get the whole psychology side of it. And I'm working in being a counselor, being a therapist for guys who don't go to counselors or therapists, because they're guys like my friends. I have a whole environment of guys who like need help with certain things and will never go to help because of what help currently looks like. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, there's a hole, there's a gap. I'm passionate about it. My wife is a therapist.
Yep.
So I'm like, I already kind of have an in. We talk about it a lot anyway. It's going to complement the physical side with the mental side of the training. And I'll be able to help a lot of people that otherwise would not get help unless they was a guy who looked like me and talked like me.
Yeah, I think that just like you walking into the room just adds the credibility, right? Rather than just some kind of book smart character or some guy. The fact that you've been there and done it, and then now you're talking about it and helping other people, just like you've helped them physically, and what I'd love to talk about in a minute, that with mindset, but even going beyond that with the mental health stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
so powerful, and that's such a great way to kind of contribute in such a meaningful way as well to people's lives.
And there's a need. Right? There's a need. And if there wasn't a need, then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't be doing it. But there's definitely a need. So, and I think actually my YouTube stuff is also going to transition as well to not only still talking about the physical stuff, but also the mental side of like, not so much as like, I've already covered how to squat a million times.
Yeah.
Like I can make you squat, right? But like, why don't you squat? Why is it scary to like challenge yourself when you get near 1 rep maximum and it feels like the weight's going to crush you? Like, why is competition scary? What's going on? How can you be as powerful as possible in certain moments and learn how to like psychologically create triggers and anchors so that you can be in the best psychological state possible when you're in a competition setting? Like all those things are the next step, right? And that's the
Absolutely.
step that
Yeah.
I'm trying to take. And it's just a step that a lot of people aren't taking yet. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm trying. That's what I'm passionate about. As we've always talked about mindset and things. So it's the next logical game plan.
It really is. And like the mindset thing and the mindset kind of challenges that they've been up on you, you've been talking about that for
Yeah.
probably a decade, right? I mean, ever since you started
Right.
actually facing the camera and not covering your face and all that. Like
Yeah.
it's
100%.
it's
And
been a
they
theme.
they were the mindset challenges. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just going to say the mindset stuff, although the obvious physical, he's a strong man stuff, the mindset has actually been a theme kind of overarching throughout. It's just
Yeah.
now becoming more prominent, as you said.
And and I think like the mindset challenges in themselves, a lot of people basically they're for people who don't know, aren't associated and don't know what I'm about. It's doing hard things for the sake of doing hard things, right? Like one of my favorite mindset challenges, you pick any implement like a sandbag or pick a pick a heavy kettlebell, right? And set a clock, walk out 10 minutes as far as you possibly can with that kettlebell. Put it down, rest 5 minutes, bring it back in less time than it took you, right? And don't sandbag it. Like you got a for real push on the way out
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you learn something about yourself. And people are like, that's stupid. How does that help my hamstring hypertrophy. And I'm like, it doesn't, dummy, but it trains your mind, right? And like
And that will,
training your mind
yeah.
is such, and I mean, there's so few things in your life where you get the opportunity to really test yourself in that kind of way, right? Because you're pushing yourself to a point of quitting. Now, physical exhaustion is a really good thing because it very much mimics the sympathetic nervous system in like a fight or flight response type of mode.
Yep.
And so like you start to train deeply. That's why every special forces, every like SWAT team, every counterterrorism unit is doing things very, very physically hard because they understand that if you learn how to push into that when it's like that, it also kind of kicks over into other areas of life. It just bleeds over, right? A lot of people don't believe that, but I will tell you in my own life from my own anecdotal evidence, there are plenty of things in my life that I've used certain physical challenges that I've had as literal milestones and been like, you know what? I just got crushed with a phone call at like 2 a.m. On a Tuesday, right? And sitting there going, I can't get past this. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I have milestones in my life where like I was like, there have been times when you were a broken man standing saying, I cannot keep going. I cannot keep going. And I do, right? And that's something you look back on and you're like, I didn't think I could keep going then. I didn't think I'd keep going now. How did I do it? I did it one rep at a time, 1 second at a time, 1 minute at a time, one workout at a time, one step, all those things. And those are lessons that I've been able to trigger back to from other areas of my life. And if I didn't do that mind training, maybe I would have done the same thing. I don't know. But I can tell you, it feels like I'm in a room that I've been in before, right?
Yeah.
When like things are crashing around and I'm sitting there going, when everyone else is like losing their minds and I'm going, I understand what my body's going through right now and I understand how to battle it and the tunnel vision and all the sympathetic nervous responses that are going on, the audio exclusion and everything.
Yep.
Same thing happens when you're deep in hard workout. And I don't know. It's a room that I would rather be comfortable in so that when bad things are going off, I am not going, what is happening? Versus I understand completely physiologically. I've been here before. I understand the challenges. Let's work through it. Let's get the job done anyway. Right.
Yeah. And I think
that's why I do mindset challenges.
No, totally. And the value is, you know, I've done a few of your mindset challenges and I've trained a lot. I competed in strongman and like, you know, even someone who's done a lot of training like that, you still get something out of it every time. And you think I've done like 20 of them before, even the 21st one, right, you get something out of it. Yep. And I think you've mentioned this before, but like, and a lot of people have said this, but you know, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? Yep. But you really live that and demonstrate that. Plenty of people have said it, right? That's not an original quote, but it's how you live and how you like deal with everyday stuff. That kind of is a, you know, I don't know many people who kind of epitomize that quite how you do. So
that's like the nicest thing anyone's ever said, man. Thank you.
Well, on that,
I really do appreciate people. Like there's a book out now called The Comfort Crisis that's like the new like Atomic Habits book that like everyone's gonna read. Yeah. And it talks about all this, about like how you need to choose. My wife and I talk a lot about like imagery and metaphors and stuff like that. And you think about like trees and roots and like if a tree doesn't grow strong roots, if it doesn't have wind to like fight against, like you need resistance. Like if you help a butterfly out of its little like cocoon thing, then it doesn't get the strength that it needs. Like we need challenges. And like we live in a world where like every bit of our environment is controlled, like from the temperature to where our food is, to like what temperature the food is, to what we want to eat. You don't need to leave the couch to get food anymore. And it's like, if you don't instill some sort of hard in your life, then you're going to get soft. And if you're soft, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being soft until hard things come.
And if there's hard people eventually, right?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Right. And they always do, because hard things are just, it's part of life. Everyone's going to suffer, you know?
I mean, everybody's going to suffer. And as you said that, so I'd encourage everybody just to type in Brian Alsru's Suffer Beautifully. That video is awesome. Like, I think it's
there's one thing I want to be known for, it's that video.
Okay.
Like out of everything in my life, it's that video.
And it's up there kind of front and center on your YouTube channel, right? So
I refuse to change it. I refuse to change it because of that.
No, why should you? It's the best video on YouTube, right? Like, why would you? Yeah,
it's my favorite video on YouTube.
So I would encourage everybody to just look at that before you watch the rest of this. Just stop for a second, take a look at that. So you've talked about hard things a lot, right? And if anybody's
Yeah.
qualified to talk about hard things, it's Brian Alsruh, I think. Like, I've got pages of notes in front of me, and I'm not going to get all of them, but you have dealt with a lot of setbacks from, you
I
know,
have.
breaking your back twice to the
Yeah.
schistosomiasis parasite to
Still dealing with it.
what exactly? Like he's 30 to 50 times a day vomiting, right? Like
Yeah.
just,
Now I throw up a handful of times a day, like 3 times a day on average, I'd say.
but still, that's a
But
bad day for most people. And that's if I throw up three
yeah,
times today, I'd be, I wouldn't be having a good
right.
day. And like
Right.
just other injuries, like a bone marrow infection. I mean, like,
Yeah, that was kicking nuts.
yeah, you've had a lot of stuff, recently the shoulder injury. I mean, you've had
Yeah.
a lot of injuries. You've had a lot of difficulty, a brain tumor, right? That's still there, I'm assuming.
Yeah. That's where it all started.
And
Yeah.
then something that I can relate to.
It
Well,
sounds
yeah.
so terrible when you say it like this.
Well, I know I don't mean for it to be like, but like, you always keep going forward. So it's this really incredible for however strong you are, however much you can deadlift, however heavy that Atlas stone is, the mental strength is just, something else. So what I wanted to ask you is, and this is something I can relate to a lot. The one thing that I have a tiny insight is this idea, well, is this chronic insomnia, right? I am not a good sleeper. And I know that it's something that a lot of people, especially in our audience, like really high achieving type A people, because you can drill yourself to train, you can drill yourself to eat well, you can drill yourself to like keep going, right? To study, to work, whatever it is. You can't really drill yourself to sleep. You can't really like force yourself. Obviously, you can take a load of drugs, but within reason, you can't.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah, you can't train yourself to shut it down.
totally, yeah. One of the
Yeah.
ways that I've really been inspired by you is, often I won't get much sleep, and most people would just give up and be like, I'm not going to train. But then you're stronger than I am. You do more training than I do. Like you probably sleep less than I do. How do you deal with that? Like how do you get through? Does it all become insignificant with the fact that you've had a brain tumor and a broken back and a parasite, or because it pre-existed all of that stuff, right?
Yes. So the sleep problem actually comes from a childhood trauma.
Right.
So I don't know better, right? Like when people are like, when was the last time you slept through the night? I was like, I was probably like 5 years old. Because there was like a home invasion type of situation when it was like a really scary situation. And ever since literally that moment, I changed and I never slept again. Right. And when I do sleep, I can't sleep in a bed. I can't sleep in like a room. I need sleep in front of like the front door where someone's going to come through. Like it's just what I need to do. And so I've always dealt on very, very low sleep when other people, but even when I would be doing low sleep stuff, I've always had good people in my life where I can remember I was this was like late high school, early college time, and I was doing construction and really was not sleeping much at all and doing things that like you do in late high school, early college, just partying and being whatever.
Yeah.
But I had a training partner that every single day I would get home from my construction job and I would call him and be like old school call, like on a real phone with a cord and stuff,
The
and call
landline,
him
right?
and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, landline, right? And I was always like, hey man, do you want to go to the gym? Because he was also working hard and he would come home. And this guy was a psycho. Like I'm a psycho for like not skipping out on things and being disciplined and stuff. And this guy can't miss. Like he's one of those guys, right? Like can't miss. He's just, this is what I do. This is what I do. And so every single day I'd call and be like, please say no, please say no. And I'd call him and he'd be like, I'm going if you want to go. And I had to drive. He couldn't drive at the time. So that started it. And then from there, it became like a point of pride. Like if in school, I remember like 2 years, I got perfect attendance. And it wasn't because I wanted to be at school that much. It was because I had not missed enough that I was like, you're too close. You can't miss now. Like you're close. And that's how it always was. I was like, when everyone else will refuse to go, I'll get up and go. Just now, just because you didn't. You know what I mean? Just to like be like, well, I'm winning now because other people, it's snowing, it's raining, it's stupid, it's whatever. And a lot of times I look back and I'm like, you probably shouldn't have gone to the gym when like you had the cold and like snot was falling out of your face, but you're grabbing barbells and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was that guy. I was like, you're never too sick. It's never too bad out. It's never whatever. Go get it done. And then when you claim that online, right? Like when I was Alpha T Nation,
Oh
when
yeah,
I was that
nobody.
guy,
I remember talking to people and they'd be like, "Yeah, but he throws out these numbers and like he's probably pretty strong." But and then you started post with the face covered because of the
with the hat
counterterrorism
down,
job.
no,
But like, and it's like, oh no, those are real plates. Like, yeah, he's moving that way.
yeah,
Yep. All right, fine. Okay, yeah, he's doing it.
no.
It
In
was
that world, because prior to that, but I was just the strongest guy in golds, right? Which at the time meant that you could deadlift like 455, right? It was like a good number at the time. It wasn't like now. And I remember looking online and seeing guys deadlift like 500 pounds at like 150 pounds. And I was like, no, number one, I was like, he's on steroids. There's no way that's possible. He's on steroids, just like
yeah,
everyone else does, right?
yeah, yeah,
But it's because I didn't understand. I didn't understand the world yet. You know what I mean? I was like, there are people who do things that are literally like ant strength type of power. And but that it opened my ceiling. I was like, oh, people are stronger than they are at like my little Maryland's golds and realized like what was possible out there. And immediately my numbers started just flying up and I started registering them on things. And I always stayed athletic when I did it. I never stopped doing athletic things. And I think I attribute a lot of my still ability to do what I do because of that,
yeah.
right? Like I never stopped him. This is my dog, by the way. That's Kona.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
he's next to me
that's
all the time.
I think that's so cool. Like I think
Yeah,
and the fact that you can still I don't know how much you weigh now, obviously it varies a bit, but like doing muscle ups and like, the human flag thing and like and what
yeah,
at 240, 250, I don't know how much you weigh,
yeah. I
but
think that's where I'm at. I haven't had a scale for a very long time, so
yeah.
I changed houses, and once I moved kind of like to the wilderness, I kind of got rid of the scale and just never. So now people are like, "How much do you weigh?" I'm like 230-ish.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little fatter, up to like 240-ish. Sometimes a little skinnier, down to like 225-ish. But for the most part, I'm right around like competition weight, where like I used to compete was 231. I never, it was a time my life blew up trying to get above that, up 273. And then I got sick with the parasite and dropped to 207 in like a month. Like it was drastic.
Yeah,
And that's when I would talk and my voice was all burnt out from all the bile and stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
different
that's I mean
time.
the way you've just kind of recovered from each of these setbacks though is just I mean what goes through your head like if something bad happens and like say I mean the shoulder stuff is comparatively minor compared to what you've gone through but like the bone marrow infection or the broken back or like didn't you compete with like a torn up like the ligaments and tendons in your feet had snapped and then your toe would like dislocate and
Yeah.
like what
My
goes through
toe
your
still
head.
looks terrible. It's still,
Well, I
um,
dropped a heavy weight on my toe, so I understand. Like, yeah, I dropped
and
a 25
it
kilo
bothers you on
plate.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. But
I
what?
uh
Yeah,
I
how
don't
do
know.
you?
I think I grew up in a household where you weren't you weren't really allowed to stop. I remember doing construction because my dad owns a construction company. And by my dad owning a construction company means he and I were the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which meant that we did everything. And I remember I was nailing on a piece of baseboard, like trim in a house, like baseboard. And dummy me shot a nail gun and it went through the baseboard, hit a plate, came back and went through my thumb,
Ugh.
out through my fingernail was all curled, right? Like the nail was because of it hitting the thing. And I pulled my hand away and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was not a time right. And I remember I grabbed it and ripped it out and it's just bleeding. And that through your thumbnail sucks, you know?
Yeah,
And
that's
so literally I pierced my thumb and I'm thinking, I'm off work for the day. Sweet. I just got off work for the day. And I remember my dad grabbing black electrical tape, wrapping around my thumb and being like, we still have like we can go home. We can go to the doctor after all this. But like, that's how my dad was, right? Like it was never, you don't go to the doctor. You don't, it took me forever to find out about the brain tumor because I want to go to the doctor. And like, anyway, I just grew up like that. So now when stuff happens, it's such, I treat even when it was like during Alpha T Nation days, I would say I would call my workouts Alpha's work
Yeah.
because I don't look at it as like, oh, we're doing training or we're working out. Like if you look at my workouts, it looks like I could be building a stone wall or doing a workout, right? Like it's manual labor is what I do. And so
Yeah.
I always looked at it like that. I come from a blue collar family, like farm type of mentality. And like when you decide to go in and you do work, you don't stop to eat, you don't stop to talk. You're certainly not on social media. Like you work, you go
Yeah.
in and you do work. And if you get hurt, you stop when the work's done. You don't stop because you're hurt. There's still work to be done. And that's just how it's always been. And so no matter how many times I step back, I'm probably too stupid to like realize it, right? But I will bang my head against the wall until the wall gives. I will on, like we said, like every 7 to 10 years, I completely drop everything and start something new. And it's not because I'm like gifted at this certain thing. It's like, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to go. Start hitting your head against the wall until that wall comes down. And hopefully you can do something cool with it and help some people, you know?
It's pretty cool though to see like you've hit these pretty high spots in all sorts of different walks of life. And I think,
I'm weird, man.
yeah, I mean, I'm really fascinated to see what's next. But I
So am
think
I.
this idea of like the frame of reference, as you said, like you were watching people who are 150 pounds deadlifting 500, and you're like, oh wow, okay, so like 500 is clearly possible. Like how high can we go? I had this courtesy actually of you and your wife the other day. So I hadn't done any
Nice.
strongman training for a while, like a long
Yeah.
time. And I got a sandbag because, preparing for this interview, it's like, I'm going to try and do some sandbag stuff. I'd used a lot of other strongman implements. So like I'd done everything from the log to like Atlas stones, competing and even training a bit. But I got
Yeah.
a sandbag, right? And I'm about 200 in American, like 210, 220. I got a
Sure.
200-pound sandbag. I was
Yep.
like, yeah,
How
I can.
humbling was that?
Brutal. Like, do you know what really got me?
Brutal.
It's like, how much can I deadlift? And you're like, it's 200 pounds. It's not even my body weight. That's like
Right.
nothing on a bar.
Right.
Do you know what really got to me that makes me throw it around now? You were like, oh, my 100-pound wife, she throws around the 200-pound sandbag. And it's like,
Yep.
it's pretty embarrassing then, really, isn't it? So, yeah.
Man, I will say I need to apologize to a couple people because I have said that to people. Like, because people will be like,
No, but it
man,
helped me. It's that frame of
yeah,
reference thing, right? It's like, okay,
yeah,
she weighs 100 and whatever pounds. Like,
100 like flat
okay, so
and
she
picked
weighs
up a
like,
200-pound sandbag and
yeah.
carried it 50 feet. Like
First
a
off,
2 ton
that's
body weight sandbag.
strong, though. Yeah.
That's you and I doing like a 500-pound sandbag, which literally
Doesn't
that's more than a world record. You know what I
doesn't
mean?
even
And
exist,
this was
right?
just
Yeah.
a Tuesday night at the gym that she did it. You know what I mean? So man, and the functional strength, like I try to tell people about sandbags because like no matter who you are, you go over and you up like a case of water or like this is heavier than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you grab things and you're like, hey, like, you know, uh but doing sandbag training teach you how to pick those things up. So like for somebody, I'm not saying like women or whatever. I'm just saying like people who might not be as strong or didn't grow up being like, oh, I do manual labor type of stuff. The idea of picking up like a case of water or a big bag of dog food and putting it in like a shopping cart is an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
Or like something they're going to dread, or they might need to ask someone for help, which they don't want to do, right? Like creepers and stuff. So like it's empowering for people to be able to take normal everyday objects like you're a table in your house and pick it up and move it yourself. Like for a lot of people, that's empowering. Like I love sandbags, man. I think they're one of the greatest tools out there.
I would, yeah. I mean, so I would say just anybody thinking about it, if you just incorporate some strong, whether that's like a farmer's walk or, some kind of strongman element. You don't have to be a strongman. Obviously, you don't have to compete in strong. Like I don't, compete in it or anything anymore. But like just incorporating that kind of training is quite a powerful thing to do. And as you said, like that's real world functional. That'll help you moving house, right? That'll help you,
Right.
as you said, with the dog food. I think that's a good thing for people to kind of, remember. And
Because people talk
helps.
about like a deadlift being functional, right? But you've never picked up a barbell and moved it for your buddy, right? It's always like a couch or like a dumb box of books or whatever. And they're like, oh, you're the strongling, you get the heavy stuff. So like being able to pick up a big cumbersome object and be able to move well with it safely, and it is a life skill that has been lost. You know what I mean?
And it also, when you go back to, I went back to deadlifting a barbell, and you feel like Zeus. You feel like
yes, you're like this thing's all perfectly balanced. It's all, it has knurling. This is
exactly, yeah.
How did I ever complain about this?
It makes a big difference, and it feels, as you said, more like, I think you described it like a toothpick or something, you know. So I think that's powerful, even for that. And for people who are really interested in body composition, you know, you're going to get those. If it's just a different form of stimulation, a different stimulus,
100%.
You're going to get not necessarily like newbie gains, but you're going to get like some adaptation that'll come a lot more easily than if you just plugged away with your barbells and your dumbbells, right?
Right. Like you do curls all day, go do a sandbag workout and feel your biceps and your forearms and everything, your calves, all kinds of stuff that you weren't expecting just because you're using them in a different sort of way. And also, man, you can get like primal with sandbag workouts, right? Like when you're grabbing something and throwing it around like it's a body, like you're wrestling almost, like you trigger into something else that like doesn't really happen as often with like, I don't know, you know, doing like dumbbell overhead press, you know what I mean? Like you can get into it, but like when you're grabbing something and throwing it because you have to literally like force every inch of your body moving as explosively as possible, like it triggers something, man. You like wake up and you're like, you can't limp into that. You have to go.
No, and you can't like half-ass that, right? Like you have to go for that. And I think also people who are, you know, concerned about aging and losing fast twitch fibers, getting that whole body explosiveness, right? Obviously hips, but like everything is kind of firing to get
being able to take your body from a class position to open it, and like that, it's a life skill, right? Like as you get older, especially, it's like being able to get on the ground and get back up, being able to move heavy things without hurting yourself. Like these are things that if you do not practice, you use it or you lose it. You know what I mean? Because man, my grandma, when she was alive, I bet I could have taught her deadlifting before I could have taught her how to like move a sandbag, you know, like that's something you have to start learning. Like you're never, the best time was yesterday. The next best time is right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think one thing as well that I got a lot from you, and, you know, I was an athlete and I did a lot of athletic stuff, but nobody really ever drilled this into me, was the importance of like really bracing down and breathing.
Yes.
Like that is one thing that can almost instantly make you stronger. Like I'm not going to put a number on it, but like instantly, significantly stronger without changing anything.
1,000%. Every seminar that I've ever done, the first thing that I do is we choose an exercise, say the squat, right? And the first thing I do is go through a 20-minute breathing and bracing seminar where we literally start laying on the ground like little babies with weights on our bellies, and we're making our bellies move up and like teaching people diaphragmatic breathing, and then how to actually brace in a full 360 degree, how to use your obliques, how to breathe into your lower back. People don't even know that's a thing. And then
but I think that's really powerful as well, because I thought I was pretty good at breathing and bracing, and like I was reasonably good at it, but like I was probably still leaving 20-30% on the table.
Yep. And the people who are truly good out of it, like you watch Ed Coan do it, like when Ed Coan was in his prime, and you watch his entire torso, it's like watching like a snake swallow an egg. Like the whole thing just expands, and then you literally get something that is so strong. He's a pillar, right? A literal pillar, like a hydraulic press is what he becomes. And also for injuries, like everyone who's ever hurt their back would never have hurt their back if they had enough air in there, because if you have enough air in there, your spine cannot bend enough to hurt. You can't herniate it. You can't like bulge discs. You can't do anything like that because you're stuck in a position. You can't bend it. It's like having a balloon that's overinflated. You can't bend it in half, right? You can't. So I think, man, if there's one thing that people can learn, it's that.
That and watch the Suffer Beautifully video. Yeah, those are the two tasks from today. Yes. That's so
that will change everything lifting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was a really good video of that as well, that you did something with like a big can of like Monster or Coke or whatever, empty can, full can.
Yeah, I was the first person to do that. A lot of people cheated after me and done that since.
Yeah.
A lot of people
let's go watch the original, right? Let's go watch
the original.
Yeah.
It was literally like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, like
It
seven
was
or eight,
forever
I think.
ago.
Yeah, it was one of your
Yeah.
first like actual facing the camera.
Yes. One of the first videos that I ever actually taught was breathing and bracing. And that was the start, you know?
So switching gears, and we've kind of talked around this a lot, and around the kind of things that you think about, and these mindset ideas, and overcoming setbacks, and the ways that you've kind of some of which you've grown up with, and it's attributable perhaps to your background, and some of which you've actually managed to train yourself with the mindset
Sure.
challenges and all
Definitely.
that sort of stuff. But I got a question, Brian. How can a doorknob change your life?
So
You know where
I
I'm going with
definitely
this.
do
Yeah.
I do some motivational videos sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And at the time I was coaching a lot of people at like a pretty serious level. And there's too many times in our lives that we just go and we blow off things because we're not being present, or you're worried about what's going to happen or what hasn't happened or what people are going to think of you, or a thousand things are going through your mind when really your performance is what things. So I
Yep.
made a video called How Doorknob Can Change Your Life. And it was all about before a big event. And I put it in the context of like a strongman competition because that's what the channel was about specifically at that time. And about how like when you leave your house to go do whatever event that you're about to do, like I'm gonna get emotional. You make a choice. You know what I mean? Like you choose who you're going to be today. Every single time, like every person you're going to interact with, you choose how you're going to be. Every single time, if you're going to touch a barbell today, you're going to choose how much effort you're going to put in. When you do your job, you're going to decide if you're actually going to do your job or if you're going to go through the motions, like all those things every single day. And it just reminds us that like do not walk back through that door the same person. Like if you have something that's important to you, make it important enough and put the effort in enough that when you come back through that door, like you are unrecognizable to yourself in the mirror again. Like you can be proud that you threw it all out there, that you died empty, that you all things I talk about. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like truly, truly laying it out there. You know, like just having the balls to quit and start something new. Like never be, you only get one shot at life. You know what I mean? Like fully go for it and recognize the moments when that's happening and choose that today is going to be a day that I am going to focus on every single thing and I'm going to come back a different person. If you can do that even 6 times a year, if you can do that, you will drastically change your life in the course of a decade. Like
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much having like a purpose, like the world gets out of the way of people who know where they're going. That if you can walk into the biggest government installation with a clipboard and look like you're supposed to be there, and no one's going to ask you what's going on.
Yeah.
Trust me on that, right? You can do it in the
Yeah.
military, you can do it in the government, you can do it in any college. You can do if you look like you're supposed to be there, people don't ask. People get out of your way, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that is a true statement for everything in life. So a doorknob literally can change by literally deciding today you're not who you were, you're who you're going to be today. And like all that starts with like who you are right now and who you are 5 years from now is nothing more than all of the decisions that you decide to make. And people are like, that's easy to say because you don't have bad things happen to you. I'm like, I do have bad things happen to me. And you get to make a decision
Yeah.
when those bad things happen, how you deal with them, right?
I
Like,
think,
I,
yeah.
people
Yeah.
just let those things slide all the time and they let life happen to them instead of happening to life. And it's disturbing watching it happen right now, you know?
I mean, yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that you're so good at is recognizing things that as opportunities. Like each day is an opportunity. Even like setbacks, you recognize them as, it seems to me, as an opportunity, as a way that
Yeah.
you can kind of get better. And how, okay, this will, just like I've got, lovely calloused hands like you do, but it calluses you up, right? It just builds your, so when the next thing goes wrong, and as you said, or like that 2 a.m. phone call, God forbid, whatever it might be, you're better able to deal with it.
And look at all the people who in life have hit bottom, right? Like I hit a kind of bottom uh when I would go to a doctor and they'd be like, you're the healthiest dying person that we know. Like we don't know how to fix you, but you're dying. you're going to die. Like, we don't know what to do. I was getting my shoulder for my shoulder surgery. We're doing the pre-op right before they put me in the operating room. And they're like, why do you care about your shoulder? You're going to die. I'm like, thanks a lot. Like, it literally, I was having conversations like that. And like, you look at people from like, some individuals that get out of prison, some individuals who like get out of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and like you meet those people, and sometimes they have the most gratitude out of everyone because they know what a gift today is, what your freedom is, what freedom from addiction is, what like those things are. And people who have been through some stuff either get angry or they get grateful, right? Because everyone suffers, like my shirt, right? Like everyone suffers, but some people do it beautifully and some people just suck, right? And that's a choice every single day. Like,
And that's another
but
thing I'd like to pick up. Like, you're good at making. So like, I remember one of the things I was watching one of the videos about, your sleep and that sort of thing, and how you make a choice. Like, okay, I could be like, kind of nasty to people, and I could be like miserable about it, but you make a choice. And like, even if you don't feel like it, you can still make that choice, right? And that's
100%.
one of the things that I've kind of, and I know you've mentioned this, and in fact, this is something I've always wanted to ask you. So like, and this is a good way of thinking about it. So like, physically, if you slept for 2 hours or whatever, 3 hours, 1 hour, 4 hours, like if someone came into your house, or like there was a tree that had landed on your wife or your dog, like you're going to be able to lift it off regardless of whether
what are you going to do?
You're still going to be just as strong, right? Regardless of whether you slept for 2 hours or 8 hours.
Yeah.
But so I totally agree. One thing I wanted to ask you about was, how do you think about that over the long term? Do you see what I mean? Because like, I feel like I can get through a certain amount, and like, I know that one night of sleep, which is not a big deal, like not going to affect me, right? No factor.
Yep. Yep.
But then I worry that like, if I'm constantly kind of going to the well when it's running a bit dry and I'm getting really tired and I haven't slept for like a week or two, like, how do you think about that? Do you see what I'm getting at? Like, that's one.
Yeah, I mean, everything costs something. The sleep is a credit card, right? Like, you might not
Well,
pay now, but you're
totally.
going to pay.
Yeah.
It's coming. So I mean,
Are you
I
still on?
suffer.
Yeah.
I suffer a lot. Like, I will have like episodes and things because of not sleeping. So that's how it comes out for me. But if I could sleep, I would sleep.
Yeah.
Like, I truly can't figure it out. Like, I literally today, when I get off the call here, I'm going to be talking to people trying to figure things out. It just if I ever found out that secret, I would bottle it and become a millionaire in like 10 minutes, because there's so many people who are suffering with this problem, man. I wish that I could tell people, like, because like everyone knows all the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
And everyone will listen to like Huberman and be like, oh, he's saying the same stuff. Like, everyone's saying the same stuff. And if it doesn't work for you, then you start looking at like vagus nerve and different things to start calming yourself down, which is, again, talking about the mental stuff that I'm trying to get into. And then that's the whole next step. That's the whole next step. I would speak more intelligent about it if I could, you know what I mean? But that's what I'm trying to learn now.
But it's, you say you're still on the same, like 3-4 hours a night? You still?
I will say my sleep is worse now than it ever has been. Yeah, I'm about as bad as I've ever been right now.
But you still, like, what I find inspirational is that you still manage to carry on, right? You wouldn't know it. Like, I wouldn't know if I didn't know about your background. I would have assumed you slept 7 or 8 hours last night, especially if you see the lifting and the,
I mean, people, yeah, and I mean, now don't get me wrong, I'm kind of a freak. I think it's because I've always been like this, but like I don't get, like, sleepy is a weird thing for me. Whereas like there's a lot of people who are insomnia who like are just groggy the whole time. They're like, oh, I just want to be in bed. I don't feel like that. I have like I wake up every morning like it's Christmas morning, right? Like, I'm like, ooh, I get to take out the trash today. Like, it doesn't need to be something I'm excited about. I'm excited. You know what I mean? And so I don't get those same feelings very often that I think a lot of people suffer with.
Oh yeah.
And so I really think I have it easier than some people, but I also think every single time that I feel like junk, I make a choice to not take it out on anyone else. You know what I mean? whereas a lot of people don't make that choice.
For sure, yeah. Some people, they won't even talk to you before they've had their coffee or whatever, even if
Right.
they slept. I think you're very good at making that choice, and you're kind of very good at being grateful and recognizing the positives. And I mean, that comes out even like, the Suffer Beautifully video, like, and there's some of the things that kind of helps keep things in context, right? Like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
really want to squat today. Oh, my knee's a bit sore. And it's an extreme example, but like the guy without the legs, he'd probably love it if his knee was a bit sore and he was a bit
It's a,
tired.
it's funny. This guy, he was number 2 in the world at time for adaptive strongman. His name's Tommy On, and he's an amazing human being. And he only has one leg, right? And he was coming to the gym with another individual, John Harmon, who had lost both his legs. He was a 82nd Airborne guy and got both his legs blown off. And I'm in the gym getting ready to squat, and Nikolai, world champion Nikolai Myers, is there, and he's squatting with me, and we're in it, like we're deep in, and I wrap up my legs, and it's above 700 pounds, so like I'm in a zone, right? And like 2 dudes without legs walk through the door, and I look at the guys, and I turn and I walk to the squat bar, and I do my squat, and everyone in the room does the same thing. They're like, "There's 2 people without legs. We're squatting though. That's what we're doing, right?" And we do the squat, and those guys were so thankful that like we didn't. To them, they felt like athletes because we did not treat them any differently, right? Like there's so many people suffering through things, whether it be insomnia, mental health, that don't have bandages. Like we talked about, like alcoholism or Narcotics Anonymous or anything, right? People
Yeah.
are going through stuff, and not everyone shows up without legs, right? But thing is, how what you expect of people is what you're going to get. And those guys, when we didn't immediately come over and treat them like everyone else, like, oh, you don't have legs. Now at my gym, it was pretty regular for someone to show up without like body parts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that made them feel like this was a place that they could get better because no one was going to treat them like anything. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I have absolutely no idea. But to take it back to like why when you see that, when that's a regular thing, like it when people ask why I do what I do, it's because I'm too blessed not to, right? Like I see other people who would die to do what I do. And
It's
like they didn't want me to come rushing over them and be like, oh, your poor legs. They wanted to see me do what I do because if they were in my shoes, they want to do that. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's a different mentality.
For sure. And I think one of the things as well is as well as that kind of like keeping things in context, you're very good at being intrinsically motivated, right? Like you don't require
Yes, I'm
music,
very
you don't
intrinsically
require
motivated.
like you're mainly obviously with those examples, I get it, but mainly intrinsically motivated, right? For the most part.
Oh, I am. It doesn't matter who is in the room, what music's like, none of that.
It doesn't
Like
make
I
yeah.
can go inside my head, and 2 minutes later, I can be so emotionally ramped up that literally before I'm deadlifting, I will be crying because there's just too much happening inside of me. And I'm not sad. There's too much happening, right?
Yeah.
And when you're able to do that without, you don't need to listen to like slaying puppies music. Like when
Yeah.
people are like, I need to listen, I'm like, you're a child. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you need to step up your game, like your mental game, because everyone should be able to be like, it's game time. And like, because there's going to be some time in your life when you need to do that.
Totally.
You know?
And I think one of the benefits of you and being so intrinsically motivated is that doesn't kind of wax and wane. That doesn't come and go, right? Extrinsic motivation will come and go. Intrinsic is like you pretty much have it, right? Like you can rely on that pretty well.
And action follows motivation. Everyone waits to
Totally.
get motivated before they act, right? But if you just start moving, it's like I read a lot of books, and all the people that I look when I'm trying to learn about writing all say like, yeah, I only write when I'm inspired, but I get inspired every single morning at 9 a.m. Like
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
I want to or not, I'm there. And once I start writing, the muse shows up. Like it comes, and then you're able to keep going. And even if it's total trash that day, like showing up at the gym and walking through the door, you won, right? You
Yeah.
get a
Yeah.
little trophy for that one. If you did one set, you get a little trophy. Like stack up those wins, man. You don't need to go in and crush it. Like it's
But
about consistency and making the right choices again and again. And in time, it's like building a stone wall or a brick wall. Like just adds up. That's truly how everyone
Yeah.
got there. Was it
It's,
just one brick at a time?
and as you said, it's like that compound interest, the auditing your life bit. And it's
Yep.
like, it'll add up. And I think that's really powerful. And also knowing that like some days you walk into the gym and or wherever and you don't feel great. And that actually ends up being a great set. Like you don't necessarily know like whether it's going to
Yep.
be a good
You
day.
don't
Like,
know.
but if you don't show up, it's not going to be a good day by definition because you didn't show up. Like that's
Exactly.
so I'm
Yeah.
conscious of your time. And there are a couple of final questions before we kind of
Sure. Sure.
wrap
Throw
up.
them
So
out there. Throw them out there.
one is I want to kind of ask, like, what advice would you give to 30-year-old or 25-year-old Brian? So, like, you've had this such a varied, interesting career, and you've hit some pretty high levels in some pretty diverse fields. So, like, what advice? You're what, 43 now? Is that correct?
43 now. Yep.
So say if we wind the clock back 10, 15 years, what would you say to that young guy who couldn't show his face? I mean, or whatever it be.
Uh, I wouldn't change things, right? Because I got where I am and how it is and stuff like that. But for my whole life, piece of advice that I took too late was do something every day that scares you. And I'm not saying necessarily like spiders scare you, you know what I mean? But like push yourself every single day, push yourself, whether it be in your conditioning session, like or choosing to do your conditioning session, or showing up at the gym, or like if you're afraid of heights, like go stand out on a balcony, like someplace that's safe, but like push yourself, like challenge your self-imposed limits because they're nothing more than self-imposed limits.
Those are the two
Like
key
anyone
words, right?
who,
Yeah.
yeah,
Self-imposed. Yeah.
100%. And like the same way that like I thought 455 pounds was a great deadlift, it's because I was in a really small tank and everyone puts themselves in a really small tank. And if you are able to constantly seek out, challenge, get little wins against things that you super dread or you're scared of. And again, not necessarily scared in the traditional sense, but like I'm scared of public places and like that I dread it. I get anxiety. I don't like it. I don't want to be around it. But like I need to expose myself to it. I need to, right? Like I can't run from those things. And to bigger extents someday you do crazy things and to lower extents other days, but every single day don't stop sharpening that sword. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's
So I wish earlier someone would have been like, hey dummy, like start pushing out of those limits a little earlier. You know what I mean? Go study abroad, go do something. Like don't just like once I have a tendency to like get comfortable and want to like stay there for a little bit, and like I really wish that someone would have been like, slapped me, been like, hey, I know you want to hang out with your college buddies because they're so cool, but like, go live in Brazil for 2 years. Like, go see what that's like, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what that would have changed my perspective of life. And it got changed later with working for the government. But like, uh, I come from a very small town with like all the same people who look alike. I wasn't exposed to different things in my world. And like, how my life would have changed if like earlier in life I was willing to like go to other countries and see other cultures and understand like it just it would have I wouldn't change anything, but like if I can encourage people to push themselves out of their little self-imposed comfort zones, that would be the number one thing to do daily. Cold plunge, just do that, do something stupid that's hard, right?